There are stories buried beneath centuries, softly whispered by the wind that moves across the golden dunes. Tales not carved in marble or echoed in the chambers of Western palaces, but gently passed on through rhythm, memory, and song, through the voices of griots and the silence of ancient stone. One such tale belongs to a man so wealthy, his name still shimmers in the imagination of the world. But he was not just rich in gold. He was rich in soul, in wisdom, and in purpose. Mansa Musa. To some, he is merely a footnote in the chronicles of world history, a curious anomaly, a ruler from a land once labeled the Dark Continent. Yet to those who listen deeply, his life is a lesson. A meditation on the use of power. A reflection on faith. A vision of how a single man can turn wealth into a river of transformation. His legacy stretches beyond gold, into the architecture of knowledge, into the sacred beauty of giving, into the quiet strength of belief. We begin this journey not with noise, but with silence. With reverence. We close our eyes and let the sands of time take us back. To a forgotten golden age. To the heart of West Africa. To the soul of the Mali Empire. A kingdom between rivers and stars. Before Musa, there was Mali. Not Mali as a modern nation, but Mali as a vast, breathing civilization, spanning forests, savannas, and river valleys. Its heart pulsed with the Niger River, curving like a lifeline through the land. It was here that people gathered. To trade. To worship. To share. This land, blessed with abundance, became the meeting place of North and Sub-Saharan Africa. A bridge between the gold-rich jungles of the south and the salt-crusted Sahara of the north. But Mali was more than geography. It was spirit. It was story. Its rise began with the legendary Sundiata Keita, the Lion King of Mali. A boy once crippled, ridiculed, underestimated. But with vision and will, he rose to unify the Mandinka tribes and defeat the oppressive Sasso kingdom. Under Sundiata, Mali became a new world, bound not by blood alone, but by shared values, honor, loyalty, and faith. His rule laid the foundation for centuries of prosperity. The cities of Mali grew vibrant. Markets overflowed with spices, ivory, and textiles. Camels and donkeys marched endlessly, carrying goods and dreams alike. And quietly, steadily, Islam began to take root, not by the sword, but by the scroll. By the hearts of merchants and mystics. It was in this land, ripe with potential, heavy with silence, that Musa would one day rise. A humble servant of greatness. Not much is known about Musa's youth. There were no royal fanfares announcing his birth. No prophecies carved in stone. He grew up in a time of relative peace, raised among elders and mystics, in a culture that valued memory more than metal. He learned not only to count coins, but to recite proverbs. He heard the call of the muezzin as often as the call of traders. And most importantly, he was shaped by silence, by reflection. When Abu Bakr II, the king of Mali, set out on his fabled voyage across the Atlantic, he appointed Musa as regent. A temporary steward of the empire. But Abu Bakr never returned. And in his absence, Musa became not just the regent, but the king. The Mansa. Yet Musa did not wear the crown with pride. He wore it with purpose. He ruled not as a tyrant, but as a trustee. He saw himself as a servant of his people. A servant of God. He believed that leadership was not about power, but about stewardship. Not about domination, but about direction. He did not dream of conquest. He dreamed of pilgrimage. For years, he longed to make the sacred journey to Mecca. To walk the steps of the Prophet. To feel the holy soil beneath his feet. And when the moment came, he did not simply go. He illuminated the path for the world to see. A caravan of light and gold. In the year 1324, Mansa Musa embarked on the Hajj, a sacred pilgrimage that would ripple across continents. But this was no ordinary journey. It was a procession of purpose. A moving kingdom. A testimony to the wealth and devotion of Mali. 60,000 people walked with him. 12,000 of them were servants, each adorned in fine brocade and silk. 100 camels followed, each carrying hundreds of pounds of gold. Horses, musicians, soldiers, scholars, they all moved as one. Across the burning sands of the Sahara. Through the bustling streets of Cairo. Toward the sacred heart of Islam, but it was not just the size of the caravan that stunned the world, it was Musa's spirit. In every town he passed, he gave freely. To the poor. To merchants. To mosques. He built relationships, not just roads. He offered not just gold, but blessings. In Cairo, he gave so generously that the value of gold collapsed for years. Inflation spread like a wave. Yet even as the world gawked at his wealth, Musa remained grounded. He did not boast. He bowed. He prayed. He learned. He listened. He was not a king showing power. He was a pilgrim seeking peace. By the time he reached Mecca, Musa was no longer just a king from a distant land. He was a legend. A mirror of humility wrapped in robes of wealth. And he would not return to Mali empty-handed, he returned with architects. With scholars. With inspiration. He returned to build more than buildings, he returned to build a civilization. The light of the mind and the path of the spirit. When Mansa Musa returned from his sacred pilgrimage, he did not return with only memories or merchants. He returned with an awakening. For in Mecca and the lands he crossed, he had seen the light of learning, the beauty of architecture, and the devotion of people who built empires not with the sword, but with the pen. It stirred something deep within him, not a desire to imitate, but a longing to elevate his own homeland to such heights. Mali would not merely be a land of gold, it would be a sanctuary of wisdom. Upon his return, Musa began to transform his empire, not by conquest, but through knowledge and spiritual refinement. He invited scholars, jurists, architects, and poets to Mali. Among them was the Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, who helped design some of Mali's greatest architectural achievements, including the famous Djinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu. These were not just buildings. They were sacred spaces, each stone placed as a prayer, each dome rising like a whisper to the heavens. Musa commissioned libraries and Islamic schools, madrasas, where students could study not only the Quran, but also law, astronomy, philosophy, and medicine. These centers of learning became beacons in the desert, attracting minds from across Africa and the Islamic world. He paid the teachers well and ensured that knowledge was treated as treasure. For what good is gold if the soul remains poor? In these years, Musa grew not just in status, but in spirit. He attended prayers with the common people. He discussed theology with scholars. He gave freely to those in need, not as charity, but as a duty. His faith was not performative. It was woven into the very fabric of how he ruled, calmly, justly, with the understanding that all earthly power is fleeting. It is said that when knowledge is watered by humility, it grows into wisdom. Mansa Musa did not seek to be the most powerful ruler. He sought to be the most responsible steward. And in doing so, he planted seeds that would bloom for generations. The empire that taught the world, under Mansa Musa's leadership, the Mali Empire reached its zenith, not just in size or wealth, but in soul. Cities like Gao, Niani, and most famously Timbuktu, became centers of vibrant culture, commerce, and learning. Timbuktu, once a quiet trading post, now stood like a jewel in the desert, home to scholars, artisans, merchants, and seekers of truth. The University of Sankore rose to global prominence, rivaling the great institutions of Cairo, Cordoba, and Baghdad. Thousands of students journeyed to study in Mali, learning from handwritten manuscripts, copying sacred texts, and sharing ideas that transcended borders. The libraries of Timbuktu came to hold over 1 million manuscripts, covering law, medicine, science, poetry, and theology. Many of these would survive centuries, hidden in sand and silence, only to be rediscovered by future generations. In the marketplaces, the hum of trade continued. Gold and salt remained the pillars of commerce, but so too did books, textiles, and crafts. The empire's wealth grew not just from mining, but from minding. Mansa Musa had created not just an economic engine, but a moral ecosystem, where prosperity was balanced with purpose, the streets were peaceful. Justice was fair. Roads were maintained. Borders were secure. Farmers worked the land with confidence. Artists sang the stories of the ancestors. And across the empire, people lived not in fear, but in dignity. Mali became a model for what a just and spiritually rooted society could be. Not perfect, but purposeful. Not boastful, but bountiful. Here, in the heart of Africa, a golden age had bloomed, lit not just by wealth, but by wisdom. The measure of a king, in today's world, wealth is often measured in numbers. In digits on screens, in vaults, in towers that touch the sky. But Mansa Musa teaches us something deeper. That true wealth lies not in what we possess but in what we give. In how we lead. In what we leave behind. He was called the richest man in history not because of what he hoarded, but because of what he shared. He gave away gold, yes. But he also gave education, dignity, and vision. He gave to the poor, to the scholars, to the builders of society. His generosity rippled across centuries, far beyond the reach of his throne. Mansa Musa reminds us that power does not have to corrupt. That leadership can be an act of devotion. That faith can guide governance. That knowledge is sacred. And that wealth, when unrooted from morality, is simply emptiness wrapped in glitter. He ruled with calmness. He listened more than he spoke. He walked among his people. And even at the height of his fame, he bent his head in prayer. From him we learn that every act of service plants a seed in time. That buildings may crumble and empires may fade, but the light of virtue shines forever. In an age of noise and spectacle, Mansa Musa's life is a quiet sermon. A soft voice saying, you do not need to conquer the world to change it. Sometimes, all you need is wisdom, faith, and the courage to give. All that is gold returns to dust. Mansa Musa passed away in the year 1337. The sun did not blink. The rivers still flowed. The call to prayer echoed as it always had. But something changed. A quietness settled. A silence deepened. For a man who had carried an empire on his shoulders had returned to the earth. The Mali Empire would continue under his descendants, but the golden light would slowly dim. Internal divisions crept in. New powers rose in the east. The trade routes shifted. And over centuries, the echoes of that great age faded beneath the sands. Timbuktu's libraries would be buried, hidden away. Its manuscripts forgotten. The mosques would weather storms. The names of the scholars would drift into obscurity. And yet, not everything was lost, for legacy is not in monuments alone. It is in memory. In the gentle influence that shapes generations. Even today, the story of Mansa Musa remains. In the scrolls of historians. In the ruins of mosques. In the quiet pride of West Africa. In every child who learns the value of knowledge, in every leader who rules with humility, in every act of giving done without expectation. He came from dust. He ruled with grace. He returned to the earth. And like all great rivers, his story flows still. The richest man in history left behind more than wealth. He left a way of being. A way of believing, and a path, quiet, golden, eternal, for the world to follow.